Okay, and welcome everyone back to Fully Operational as we continue our coverage of World Championship Weekend 2017 for Star Wars The Living Card Game. Once again, we have, this is Game 2 of Swiss Round 1, so on the left we have Bridgette Ferarro, looks like she's playing mono-Navy, and on the right we have Chris Kowalski playing mono-Jedi. I personally didn't run into too much mono-Jedi on the day, so it'll be interesting to see what Chris has in his deck. Looks like he's flopped May the Force be with you. Daughter of Tanab, which is the pod with Surrender and a couple of other cheap units, and Return of the Jedi in it. Nice event to get a Jedi unit back from your discard pile. And then his third objective is Flight of the Crow, so some really nice events in there, and obviously the Crow, the Mouldy Crow itself, which has 4 blast damage. It can one-shot an objective on its own if there's nothing in the way to defend it. Whereas for Bridgette, she has started with double Might of the Empire and the Tarkin Doctrine. Might of the Empire is a great objective. It's probably one of the best ones you want to see on the opening flop for that deck, because it gives all your capital ships elite. And spoiler alert, there's quite a lot of capital ships in that Navy deck. So I think we've seen quite a few games from the Navy decks over the past year or so, ever since they've really come into power. So the general theme of the Navy deck here is going to be to establish a kind of overwhelming board presence. As you see there's a golden defense platform with 3 black unit damage, a tactics, and it can't be locked down until itself has struck in a fight. Oh my lord, and some Stormtrooper assault squads there. So Bridgette started off here with a really strong defensive board. She's got lots of unit damage to be able to deal with anything that Chris puts on the board here. She has tapped herself out though. Bridgette has used both resources on both her copies of Might of the Empire. So she's, as it stands, she's only going to have 3 money next turn, 4 with the Engineer. But she takes the Force with the Golem. And Chris has 4 money available to him. So he does have a resource. Now something Bridgette's going to have to be a bit wary of. I'm always a bit wary of committing a Golem. They do have 2 Force pips, but you kind of want them available most turns to defend. And committing it means it will be out of action 1 every other turn. So that's the tricky thing. Also, knowing that Chris is running the Mouldy Crow with the Flight of the Crow, that pod has a board wipe in it. When Chris wins a Force struggle, he can My Allies the Force, which will destroy every unit. Not committed to the Force, I believe. Surrender, that unit there is from the Daughter of Tanab pod. She will, when she's killed or sacrificed, Chris can go search for an event card and pull it to hand from his deck. Great 2-cost unit. 2 cost, 3 health, 2 black icons, a unit and a blast damage, and that interrupt when it leaves play. Such a cost-effective 2-drop. And of course the speeder bike from Endor Luke's pod, the Hero's Trial. 2 black tactics, edge 1. But if it's in a fight and it does lose that battle, it kills itself. So it's a tricky one. Chris is going to have edge 2 if he goes in with both. 1 from the speeder bike and 1 on surrender from Flight of the Crow. But that Golem is going to kill something. So it looks like Chris is starting to work on Tarkin Doctrine. Bridgette could potentially trigger and force him to pay 2. Which I probably would, to be honest. I wouldn't be too hung up about getting 2 damage on a Might of the Empire. Oh, she lets it through. Lets it through unopposed, no less. So Surrender goes through with 1 blast and unopposed. Chris is thinking about the Force phase. Chris does commit surrender and uses May the Force be with you to free it up. He won't take the Force though because it's 2 pips to the Golan's 2, so Bridgette's dial ticks up to 3 as she holds the Force. And I think this is the crucial turn here for Navy. Bridgette's established pretty strong board there. Obviously Chris didn't want to attack too much into it. He was a bit wary of sending the speeder back as well. But Bridgette's only got 3 money here, so it's going to be a slow turn 2. But she, so has to pay 2 money for the control room, and now still has 3 money. It's got to be, looks like choosing not to play the control room. It is tricky with the fleet staging area. It can only be spent on Navy units that cost 3 or more, I think. So the maths can work out a bit wonky sometimes. If she only had a 2 cost a unit, or so again, here we're seeing the difficulties with Navy if they do end up running out of money.
It would have been a little more balanced if it was only space stations.
But it's not often they do run out of money. So Bridgette just thinking through her options here. Feels like she might have a Gladiator here, or a Tarkin would be a good way to round out that board. Another Tactics is really what you're looking for. Oh, Yularen comes out to ping that 2 damage back, so forcing Chris to start his work all over again. So those 2 damage off Tarkin Doctrine. Yularen, when he enters play, gets to move them.
Yeah, it would still be active, but it would be close to being not active.
And Bridgette moves it to Daughters of Tanab. Hoping to turn that off fairly quickly. Daughters of Tanab has reaction after you play an event card. Draw a card for Chris as the Jedi player. Once Bridgette manages to get 3 damage on that, though, that text is blank. And looks like Bridgette passes, holds the Force with the dial on 3, and it's up to Chris. So again, we saw a couple of key opportunities there. So Bridgette only had 3 money to use. She used it on Yularen. Chris has now got to capitalise if he's going to get ahead on this board. And if he can, he might be able to keep board presence and board control. So he plays out Endor Luke, which we knew was in there from the speeder bike pod, and attaches his lightsaber to him, which is... oh, that's Obi-Wan's lightsaber, actually. So it still triggers. Endor Luke will still get to do a damage, and he can still discard that attachment to refresh himself. I believe Obi-Wan's lightsaber gives shielding. It gives an Obi-Wan protect unit if you put it on Obi-Wan, but I think any other unit just gets shielding. So that's interesting to see one of the newer Obi-Wan pods, the lesser run Obi-Wan pods. I love that pod. It increases the cost of enemy events. Has Obi-Wan, which is always a great 5-drop. If you can afford him, he's an amazing unit with a great spread of icons. So it's good to see Chris running a few of the lesser seen pods here out of Jedi. Yep, so there's Obi-Wan's lightsaber shielding Luke.
Obi-Wan's lightsaber. Oh, thank you. I will send these guys.
And then looks like they're coming in. Luke on his speeder bike with a lightsaber. How thematic is that? He's coming in for the Tarkin Doctrine.
I'm out of the engagement. I will go in.
Bridgette asking him to pay 2, so he can't. So the objective's cancelled, the engagement is cancelled, and Chris comes in again with both shielding this speeder bike. So 2 shields there out of the 1 lightsaber is pretty efficient use. And now coming in against Might of the Empire. That's one of the things that we saw a lot of players do at Worlds, and they continue to do actually, whilst Tarkin Doctrine is still in play. Using those triggers that when you declare an engagement, or like Han doing his 1 free damage from the core set Han, or shielding, just they get much more valuable if you use them, trigger them, and then have the engagement be cancelled because of Tarkin Doctrine. You can use them again, as Chris just did there. So great play there. Looks like Bridgette's blocking with both her unit damage units there, the Golan and the Stormtrooper team. Both players committing pretty heavily to the edge battle. Chris needs to be careful here because he can refresh with May the Force be with you and Luke's chucking his saber, but he's only going to have 1 card. So it looks like Chris wins. Fairly tied edge battle, but Chris will win because of the speeder bike and Flight of the Crow giving Luke edge 1.
So, what I will do is place a focus token on Stormtrooper Assault and another focus token on Stormtrooper.
So Chris cannot kill or focus down the Golan there, so going with the speeder bike to focus down the Stormtrooper Assault team twice.
I'll take 1 on the shield.
And the Golan shoots Luke back for 3 damage. 2 go through the shield and 1 gets blocked. It's interesting there that Chris chose to focus down the Stormtrooper team. They lost the edge battle, so they have no icons. I would have been tempted to let them strike on their own, or maybe just put something on Yularen. I don't know. At least they're not there for next turn. And I guess Bridgette could have killed the speeder bike with the Golem, but she chose not to.
Trying to think if I want to do this now or later or not do it at all. Oh, you did shoot Luke, right? Lightsaber deflect just to kill.
Oh, okay. Chris coming in there with a bit of a late trigger on lightsaber deflection, but choosing to ignore a further 1 of those damage from the Golan to kill the Death Star engineer. Engagement ends with Might of the Empire lightly damaged. So again, this is where Chris needs to be careful. He's out of cards completely now. Coming in quite heavily to that battle, only to get 2 damage on Might of the Empire.
Take the Force with 2 and pass turn end of turn actions. Anything for you?
So Da will tick up to 4. Surrender takes the Force. So as we said, Chris has an option now to refresh Luke if he wants by discarding that lightsaber. And Chris did at least manage to lock down the 2 hard-hitting units there, the Golan and the Trooper team. So they're out of the fight for this turn, but Bridgette is back with 7 money. So... and some card draw now hitting the table with the mouse droid. Oh, and Chris again coming in with a another late trigger there. Triggering Daughter of Tanab should have been done when he played the late lightsaber deflection. So Bridgette being pretty kind here. But I guess it's round 1 of Swiss, and it's always a friendly day. So nice to ease into the day. Bridgette using the mouse droid there. Great ordering of a turn here. Playing the mouse droid first to draw a card, and then seeing what her options are. Decides to tractor beam off the Golan onto the speeder bike. Again, it's one of those small kind of nuanced plays. I don't know if you're better waiting to use that tractor beam because obviously the Golan can't attack, and the speeder bike was already locked down, so it wasn't a threat for defense either. So potentially keeping that focus on the Golan, just in case Chris does try and swing in with the speeder bike again, or maybe drops the Falcon. Well, not the Falcon, the Crow. He might be running the Luke's new Skyhopper from one of the relatively recent Jedi pods. So just keeping that tractor beam as a defensive tool to free up the Golan and lock down maybe the Crow would have probably been a bit of a safer play, but we'll see how it ends up. It's always nice to have a Golan available, and it is on the Force, so it will help Bridgette should she choose to try and take the Force here this turn. Bridgette also plays, looks like a Rule by Fear, the 3-cost enhancement at the back there. It can sacrifice that to return a 3-cost unit to Chris's hand when it's played. So it's usually reserved for Yoda. It used to be able to do it to any unit, but it got errated. And Yularen swings in and puts the other 2 damage on Daughter of Tanab. So it turns off and Chris can no longer draw his cards from playing events. So, again, pretty interesting board state here. Both players are starting to build up quite a decent chunk of units. Endor Luke is no slouch. He can win games all by himself. But the Golden Stormtrooper team, and obviously that Mouse Droid is an MVP. So it's anyone's game at this point. Bridgette's starting to build up that resource base. So again, anything she draws from here on in, she'll probably be able to play. And again, Chris has got a window here. He's only got to deal with that Golan. So he has a perfect window to blast through and potentially take out an objective or two and prime himself up, set himself up for the win. That's probably what I'd do in this situation. Try and keep Luke alive. He's got his shielding. And he's done a pretty good job. Luke, he's not committed. Chris has not committed Luke to the Force. Endor Luke is not someone you want committed, even though he's elite. Just because he is. He would not, if he strikes and when he's committed, he'll put 2 focus on. His action to remove a enhancement will only get rid of one of those focus tokens, not both. So, short story, you don't want Endor Luke committed if you want to be aggressive. Not sure. We'll have to see. That's always a dodgy play. Bouncing back Uncle Owen with the Rule by Fear. Be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts on that. You can't replay Owen, even though he's 0 cost, because he is limited, and you've already played your limited card that turn. So it's basically denying Chris a 3 resource ramp. But if Yoda hits the board here, I'd be pretty sad. The resource enhancement there, hitting Jedi Luke. So Luke gets to trigger and do another damage to the trooper team, killing it. That's a great unit to get off the board. It's more of a threat to Chris. Can target strike down any unit on his board at this time. So. And a Gotal Outcast. That's one of the 2 drops from Surrender's pod. It gains 2 black bombs whilst the Force is with the light side. So it currently does have 2 black bombs, which is a steal for 2 resources. Surrender coming in, putting 2 more damage on the bottom might of the Empire. So as we said here, this is Chris's window to just set himself up for a win on a future turn, getting all those objectives within striking distance. Can be tricky with the Empire being able to flow unit damage, blast damage back with Yularen, as we saw earlier, and the fake card as well. Chris paying for his Gotal there, I think that's what it was. Oh no, playing for the Tarkin tax actually. Looks like he used the resources on Luke and Luke's enhancement to play for the Gotal. The Golan is blocking here, so it's a Twist of Fate versus the Heat of Battle. I believe it's a Heat of Battle from Endor Luke's pod. So Chris has got a decision to make now. If he wants those bombs to go off, he has to commit to this battle. But he will have, again, not many cards for the defense, and Bridgette does have the money to capitalize on that this turn. She'll be able to draw anything and play anything. We've not seen Chimera yet. We've not seen the Gladiators. A couple more Death Star Engineers, is a couple more bombs. Chris is thinking about this. He's choosing to pass on the edge battle, so the Golem will win. Nuke the Gotal Outcast and focus down Luke. That'll force him to use his ability if he wants to be available. Oh, and bringing out with unfinished business a land speeder. So Chris is trying to remember where he's attacked. It doesn't really matter if he can redirect to somewhere else, but yeah, it's good. Always good to keep a track of which objectives you've engaged already this turn. Most players have a habit of sliding the objective slightly out to the left to show that he's been engaged. It looks like Chris hadn't attacked the one he wanted to attack anyway, so he doesn't have to redirect. And at the end of the phase, after tacticsing down the Golan, it goes back to the discard pile, that speeder. So pretty cost-effective, unfinished business there. Focusing down the Golan for an extra turn is always nice. It's a beefy defender that you just don't want to have to deal with. But when it does have tactics on it, just keep piling them on. And yeah, so Bridgette refreshes. She's going to draw. She should get a new objective as well. And that new objective is... Oh, okay, Entrenched Defense. So that is a beautiful flop that you want to see mid-game. The game's still anyone's. Chris does have a bit of a better board presence at this point before... I'll say that before Bridgette probably drops some big Star Destroyers. There's even more money. But Entrenched Defense is one of those great cards you like to see to come out and just save your ass and pull it out of the fire. You can force your opponent to attack Entrenched Defense effectively. So even though Might of the Empire is damaged, Bridgette can start protecting that and force these engagements where she wants to go. So it's a really good defensive tool and definitely one you're happy to see drop mid-game. And Bridgette doing the maths again. She's doubling up, so she looks like she's paying for something big here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 money available. You do have a mouse droid as well. Bridgette, don't forget that. That's card draw. And that is Eric Darman, the lead design and judge of Worlds 2017 and every competition over there I've ever been to, actually. Just calling 10-minute time on the round, so... Oh, Bridgette is going in with the mouse droid, not using the card draw. She wants the unopposed. Bridgette, I love you. Great play. Daughter of Tanab goes away. And the dial should click up. Don't forget the dial clicking up, guys. Now, the Chimera and Yularen could do some work here. Now, Luke is available. He can chuck one of those enhancements off him, like probably the resource enhancement, to just free himself up. Chimera, if
So good. Like half the book is about Governor Price. I'm just like, who the hell is this Ariana person? I'm like, oh, Price. Wait a second. Is that from Rebels? It's almost like.
it'd be interesting to see what's going on here. I mean, Chris is
Here's what happens in Star Wars.
Chris is telling a story. Time of 10 minutes got called a few minutes ago, so
I am not going to sacrifice the Luke Skywalker to die to Chimera.
yeah, choosing not to free Luke up. He doesn't want to throw Luke under the bus with Chimera swinging it. Luke versus a Star Destroyer is probably an unfair fight, to be fair. So looks like Bridgette's choosing the blast, which is a great call. The bomb and the unopposed, so 2 bombs, the unopposed. Tactics on the speeder bike. And committing Yularen will win the force back. So again, so one unit available for Bridgette on the defense is Yularen. Another window here for Chris. He doesn't have to deal with the Golan, doesn't have to deal with Chimera. There's no money open for Bridgette to tractor beam again. And may the force be with you is Chris's new objective. That's not one you really are too... it's never bad, but you're not happy to see it mid-game when you've already got some... Why is Surrender dead? Why is Surrender dead? Confused.com. Chris, if you, I have no idea what you just did there, but I assume there was an event played. Oh yeah, is it the Noble Sacrifice there? The Obi-Wan event from the new Obi-Wan pod that we were talking about earlier. It allows you to sacrifice a Jedi and put 3 focus tokens on a unit. So it looks like Chris has focused out Yularen completely there with 3 focus. And Surrender leaving play means Chris can get an event from his deck. I think he's looking... He spent a good few minutes looking. I don't know whether he's checking his options out or... No, he went for Yoda Usyk Yoda. It looks like he played it to get Yoda. That should tick the dial up again, guys. I think that was missed in game 1. So make sure we don't miss it this time. Sorry about that, guys. Tricky to follow all these plays with events coming out and leaving play and not sure what's in everyone's deck. A little bit rusty on the commentary. Need to get back in the chair. So Chris has a completely open board and already has 1 objective down. So it's just a math puzzle here for Chris. He does have Luke available, not committed. So that's 2 bombs plus unopposed. Refresh, 2 bombs unopposed again. So... Bridgette's not careful in how she redirects, that could be entrenched defense gone. Resource burst there from Owen, so if he's got the units in play or another unfinished business, Chris might have the bombs he needs here. I think he might be a couple short still. Just moving Yoda around there. I don't know, unless you've got something else in your hand, Chris, or some tricks, or a target of opportunity, which I think does come in Obi-Wan's pod. Oh, okay, so sacrifices Owen Lars to play Luke's lightsaber. It's free money, but I guess it keeps 2 money available for the Tarkin Doctrine. And just choosing where he wants to damage, either on the Golan or the Chimera. So Luke has got plenty of enhancements there that he can throw away to refresh himself. He can only do it once per turn, but he's going to have plenty of unit damage.
Target doctrine, how many bubbles? So this gives him shielding and nothing else. This gives him a gun, one gun, and that's about it.
So does none of that stuff gives Luke extra objective damage. So again, I think still Luke could go in at Might of the Empire. You probably redirect to entrenched defenses at that point.
I'll send him to Tarkin Doctrine.
But going in at Tarkin Doctrine with Yoda. Oh no, or just Luke maybe. Looks like Yoda's tapped.
I will strike to do 2 damage to it. I'll discard Luke's lightsaber to refresh him in the engagement, and then I'll strike again, which will do 4, and then I'll
Not sure why Crow got focused.
Why is this hard? Oh, I didn't have to play it. So I was paying for Target Doctrine, but you never had to make me do that. I was getting ready to do that.
Okay, so it looks like Luke. Okay, Luke going in against Tarkin Doctrine. Bridgette choosing not to trigger it there and pay attacks at 2. So Luke chucks away. Looks like his lightsaber, which is a fair play. You can always get it back for 1. So chucks away his lightsaber to refresh in combat and will nuke that objective in one go. And now it's just Yoda. Just Yoda. So can't finish the job. Yoda and the speeder bike commit using May the Force be with you to bring the speeder bike back. So playing a slow game. This is probably the last turn. So got to be only a couple of minutes left on the round. So Bridgette refreshing the units there. The mouse droid and crucially the Chimera is back. Drawing up and should get a new objective as well. Endor Entrapment would be a good call here. It'd be able to... oh, and that's also brilliant. It adds 1 to the Death Star dial in effect here. So that might be crucial for Bridgette to try and close this game out. I'll keep a track on the Death Star dial at the bottom there. Targeted strike is only on the attack. That is correct. These guys are running jokes here from the previous game. Not sure whether targeted strike was available on the defense. It's not for most units. A couple do have a special version of it, but not today. So Bridgette only needs to destroy 2 at this point, I think. She's got, you know, she can fling 2 damage back off Might of the Empire, which would take care of Chris's top objective. That'd be a nice surprise if she could pull it off. I'm not sure if it's in her hand. But Tarkin Doctrine again, we've not seen Bridgette been able to flood the board quite in the same way that some other Navy decks have, whether the cards just haven't come out for her in the right order. It's been big unit after big unit with the Golan and the Chimera, less of the Gladiators. So Chris taking a couple of actions there after Tarkin hits the board, refreshing Luke and then discarding and bringing the lightsaber back from discard so that he can ping a damage. And there's a Gladiator. That's what we're talking about. 1 of every icon: unit damage, blast damage, and a tactics. Edge 1. And can drop a card in the edge battle to make sure you swing it in your direction. Beautiful unit. All for the low price of 3. And there's 2 of them. They're on offer today, ladies and gentlemen. Gladiators. That buy one, get one free offer is beautiful. So I think Bridgette definitely has the board here to close this out. If she has a tractor beam, I'm not sure she has the money to pay for a tractor beam. No, Bridgette doesn't. So the units you've got on board, plus the perennial fake card, Imperial Fist, to fling damage back. Again, Chris had a maths problem this last turn. I think Bridgette's got one this time. Bridgette considering if she wants to blank something, I think, with Tarkin. Just checking the action windows after edge battles, Bridgette. All 4. So it feels like Bridgette has a plan here. The Death Star is treated as 1 higher. You can see her do it again. You're just working through the maths. At some point, this game just does become a math issue. So Bridgette looks like she's swinging in with all 4. So I've got to imagine Bridgette's basically not going for the top. It's probably a Crow or the other May the Force be with you. For some reason, Chris is placing first in this edge battle. All in. Is it all in for everyone? 5 for Chris. And Imperial Fist. So 2 for Bridgette will move. So 9, 10, 11 for the second objective. Probably worth going through the strikes just to make sure that it goes off. I think that is a sealed game for Bridgette. But yeah, Chris and Scoop, the Death Star dial being 1 higher from Terra there actually did make a difference. Oh, Chris. Oh, are we going to have Chris go back and... Are we going to try and work through the strikes here? I think it is a fair... Yeah, Chris could have shielded an objective, but yeah, I don't think he could have shielded the one he needed. So it's a great game there, pulling it out of the bag for Bridgette with a beautiful use of the Imperial Fist fake card there. Plenty of units coming out in the final turn when she needed them, and obviously Tech Terror being 1 higher than it should be. The Death Star dial is always a cheeky pull out of nowhere to close the game out. So well done, Bridgette. It's good to see the game round 1 go 1 each, so a split. So both players will move forward with 3 points, and we will continue our coverage and hopefully see you guys at table 1 for the next round of Swiss. Thanks for watching. Cheers.